and welcome everybody to Tech Talks. And I see some familiar faces and some folks I haven't seen for a little while. So looking to reconnecting with some of you in person here soon, hopefully, but it's good to see you all on camera. As Bo said, my name is Michael Thanert. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the founder and CEO of Whizkids. And I'm putting on a series of Tech Talks to really educate businesses on number one, how their business is going to be changing post-COVID, but then also the technologies that they may need to adopt in order to keep pace. And I'm going to be putting these on monthly throughout the year. And again, appreciate everyone joining today. So how has your business changed, and what will cloud services look like post-COVID? And I think a lot of us are right now getting to the end, or hopefully towards the end of the pandemic. And we've realized that our businesses are changing, and that how we worked before isn't going to be the same way that we're going to continue to work moving forward. And that's what these Tech Talks are really designed around. The overview of what I'm going to be talking about throughout the year, we start first with communication and collaboration tools. And I chose that really because, first of all, we're seeing a lot of clients as well as new clients coming in, and they're using a lot of different tools to communicate and collaborate with one another. And there's a lot of confusion around which tool should I use, or which piece of software should I use, and what's best for my business. So I thought that would be a good one to start with. As we go through this series, we're going to get into desktop as a service, which is our cloud desktops or workspace. We've done some really exciting things there. We're going to show how programs like AutoCAD and SolidWorks in the Adobe Creative Suite work within our cloud desktop environment. It's a really powerful tool we're excited to show. We're going to talk about infrastructure as a service. What is it, and how can my business take advantage of it? And is it something that your business might need? And then we go through things like disaster recovery, into how do you choose a provider, public, private, or hybrid? And then what is cloud pricing cost? Is it something that is within the budget that I can afford? And what should I plan for? What's a migration look like? And what are cloud assessments? Is that something that I should partake in? So that's kind of the overview of this series. I wanted to start very simple with communication and collaboration tools, because that's what we're all using today. And we're going to dive into that right now. Before we do, a couple things about Whizkids for those of you that don't know us. We're a cloud services company based here in Minneapolis, and our core services are infrastructure as a service. Think of that as servers in the cloud. Desktop as a service. Think of that as your desktop in the cloud. Managed IT support and services, as well as disaster recovery and security. So we really cover the whole suite for businesses when it comes to their technology needs. I thought it would be important to really talk about, and this is really what spurred these Tech Talks, was that technology is always changing in businesses. And I think it's one of those that changes pretty rapidly. And COVID really accelerated the push, especially in the Midwest, to cloud. In other regional areas, we were seeing the adoption happen in the last couple of years, but COVID really pushed that upon us. And so I just grabbed some stats online from some websites I visit often, and it was interesting to see that 39% of us were working remote in 2012. By 2016, that had jumped up, 4% to 43%, but it was still modest. Now, if you look at our counterparts in Europe, for the last 5 years, there has been a ton of work being done remotely. And there's a lot of studies that have been conducted in Europe that really show that it works, and that remote working is something that you can do, and your business can still be profitable and successful. By the beginning of the pandemic, that had grown to 62%. And I think it's safe to say now that probably 7 out of 10 employees are working either remotely or what I call flexible work, which is something I'm going to talk about. So what's going to happen moving forward? I think we're going to see, to start, really 4 in new environments evolve. I think we're going to see no remote work, which obviously we've had for years, or very limited remote work, things like snow days. Maybe someone's not feeling well. think those are still going to be around. But I think the new hybrid environment that's going to evolve is what I'm calling flexible work locations. And that's where companies are going to downsize their real estate. And we're seeing that happen already. Now, we were talking with clients pre-COVID about doing some of that. So we knew that that was coming, but again, it accelerated it. So this is going to be where companies, take their locations, go into maybe a co-working or a touchdown space, and then employees come in a couple days per week. And I think there's going to be two models there. You're going to see the flexible work location, meaning we have a corporate touchdown space where you can come in and spend time and collaborate with one another, but you don't have to. And I think the other side of that is going to be businesses who say, well, we're going to do flexible work, but you need to be in so many days per week, either 2 or 3 days per week. And I think that's going to be the new model moving forward. I also think completely remote is not going to be as taboo as it once was before. When you're starting a startup, one of the kind of we've made it, or we've arrived, is that first major office that you have it, which really shows your clients that you have made it. But now with everybody having this flexible arrangements, I think that completely remote can also be an option for businesses as well. And I think that startups are going to be able to benefit from that in this new era moving forward. So this is what I see moving forward. And with that flexible work location, as companies go to that model, their technology needs are going to change, and how they were receiving their data and working before is going to be different. And that's what we're going to talk about today, what some of those technologies are. A brief story about remote working. So in 2018, we were seeing a demand in our cloud business, and we were hiring for some higher level positions. And we were having a difficult time finding the right talent. And so we were in a brainstorming session with some other leaders, and we were trying to come up with some benefits and some perks to attract more talent. And so we landed on, why don't we open up our cloud positions for flexible work locations? Let's add that to the job description, see what happens. Well, not only did the quantity increase tenfold, but also the quality of applicants did. And I said at the time, I said, well, I think we're onto something here. And I don't want my competitors to know about it. That's for sure. And but the end result was we started seeing it then. And what we did was we rolled it out to all of our teams. And so pre-COVID, we had really adopted this flexible work location. And some things that we found, and which is why I think this is going to continue on, is that, and one of the biggest things we found when we polled employees was the cost savings that they incurred by being able to just work at home 3 or 4 days a week and then come into the office. They were saving money on parking and driving downtown and expensive coffees and expensive lunches that they're eating downtown. On average, they were saving about $500 to $700 a month, which was phenomenal. But more important than that, the time that we gave them back was what they really appreciated, which was about 40 hours a month in time that they were spending commuting. We figured about an hour each way into their traditional office space. Now we have opted to go with the touchdown model, where we have a co-working space where we've got a couple offices where our team can come in and gather. There's conference rooms there and all sorts of things that they can take advantage of. And that's what we chose. And we did because we found that some people still like to come in and work with others, and completely remote wasn't going to work for our business. We wanted still to have a touchdown spot. I do think that if you don't offer flexible work locations, I do think you can make it a case that you could lose top talent, because if you're in a business that can offer that, and you don't, and your competitor does, I think you run the risk of losing some really good talent because of the things that we found, which is cost savings to the employee, time back in their time bank that they receive doing that. So I do think it's important that if you are in a business that is not retail or restaurants, where you have that heavy face-to-face requirement, I would strongly encourage you to look at developing a flexible work arrangement or something along those lines, because I do think you run the risk of losing talent. And then obviously we use a small touchdown space and reduced our costs significantly. In fact, around this time, we were looking at expanding our business. So we were going to have to buy more real estate, and we were going to have to buy more office, all these other things. And so by doing this, not only did our employees save money, but the business did as well, because we didn't have to continue expanding our real estate footprint to accommodate more people. Some interesting stats around this remote working, and I think this really speaks to the staying power of kind of this new work environment that we're in. And I'm not going to go through all of these, but a couple that stood out to me were 48% of remote workers exhibit more discretionary effort. I think for a long time, leaders have been concerned that unsupervised employees require more intervention from managers, and that's just not the case, and that's what we're seeing. 83% say the shift to remote work has been successful. So again, the time that we've been in this pandemic and the time that people have been able to become accustomed to working this way, I think is going to make this last for much longer. Had it only been a couple of weeks or a month, probably not. I don't think we may have seen the shift like we are now, but based on the time that we've been in this, I think, and the success that a lot of businesses have seen, I think it's here to stay. The interesting thing I thought was that executives and employees disagree a little bit on how many days they should be back in the office. But I think what we're seeing here is that 2 or 3 days a week is what you're going to see folks in the office, and then the rest of the time flexible. Here's where businesses are going to be spending their money on tools moving forward. So the biggest one is collaboration, which is why I focused on that today. There's going to be a lot of money poured into virtual collaboration tools. But they're also going to be spending money on training for managers to work with their staffs on virtual with a virtual workforce. And then they're also going to be outfitting and changing some of their work arrangements, whether they go into more of a co-working environment or they outfit their office and downsize their office to have more of a hoteling or just touchdown spots for people to come in and work. But what I envision is more open collaborative spaces, touchdown tables where people can come in and sit down and work and then detach and leave and go home for the day. So let's kick things off with communication and collaboration tools. Now that we know that remote working's here, we know it's not going away. We know that there's benefits to it. And now, what are some of the tools that we need to look at adopting in order to keep pace with our competitors? And I think it's important that you have a communication and collaboration tool. Now, I picked 4 out to start. There's a number of them out there. And I just for the sake of time, I couldn't go through every particular tool. But the 4 that I picked were unified communications as a service, Zoom, Slack, and Teams. Probably the 4 major tools that are software tools that are available out there. I will say that these tools are best demoed. So if you have a technology partner and you don't have a tool, or you're looking at one of these, I'm going to start by saying that a lot of these tools are best demoed. And for the sake of time, and because each tool really matches up with a business need, I'm not going to demo each one. I'm going to talk to each one a little bit and give you an idea on some of the pros and cons. But I strongly encourage, if one stands out to you, to talk with your technology partner and have them demo it and for you, so you can see how it might work for your business. So unified communications as a service. I think this is a great solution if cost is really a concern for you right now. The pandemic, obviously from small business perspective, a lot of us are still recovering from that. So if budget is really important to you, unified communications as a service is something that might be a good solution. And it's generally offered by your phone company, your hosted VoIP providers. So hosted VoIP and unified communications as a service, they really mean the same thing. I've thrown a couple here on the screen that offer this service, such as Ring Central and 8x8. But what these tools do is they provide you a piece of software that allows you to chat with your team members, allows you to video call, allows you to also have voice calls with your team members as well, both internal and external calls. A lot of times it can be added to your existing account for a couple bucks a month if you don't have it already. And what we often find is people have this, they just don't know that they do. And they're like, wow, I didn't know I was paying for this. Great. This is something I can use. So it's a perfect for internal communications. In 2006, 2008, 2010, those years, this was really the tool that a lot of companies used in the early days of hosted telephony. So it's cost effective. It really meets the bill for being able to talk with your team. Where I think it lacks, and it definitely lacks, is the platform side. So it's just not a robust platform. And what I mean by that is that a lot of these other tools allow for really deep collaboration amongst your different departments. This doesn't. It just really lacks that software feature set. So if you're looking just to be able to talk and communicate, UCaaS or hosted VoIP is something I would look at for your business. If you're requiring more collaboration and tools to fuel that, this probably isn't your best bet, and you're going to be best served by going with a different solution. Zoom is probably one of the more common tools that many of us are using. And, with the start of the pandemic, a lot of people rushed out. And that's really what we saw was people went out, kind of bought a couple software collaboration tools, bolted them onto their business, rolled it out to everybody and said, okay, hey, here's what we're using for video and use this for client meetings. And this is the way we're going. Because I think at that time, a lot of us thought, oh, this is, 3 months or 4 months and we'll be back to normal. And that's why I mentioned earlier, we're seeing people carrying, Zoom and Teams. And it's like, you got two tools doing the same thing. Let's consolidate those down to one and save your business some money and get everyone on the same platform. But Zoom is a great video tool. And I think that while it initially lacks some security features, they've done a good job of building out that platform to be more robust in regards to its security. It's got strong video, and Zoom really positioned themselves once the pandemic hit to be a hosted VoIP player. They're for a long time, they were just a video play, but they realized that in order to make money, they needed to add other services on. So they bolted on voice and some other things with Zoom. So I really consider Zoom kind of like another UCaaS or hosted VoIP player now. That's really the market segment where they're fitting in. So if you're looking for a solution like what I described in hosted VoIP or UCaaS, I think Zoom and both of those compare well together. If you need webinar capabilities, Zoom has some really nice webinar features that you can add on to. So again, lacks a robust feature set of a Slack or a Teams in regards to its collaboration capabilities. So while I think it's a good tool, it's not one that I would recommend most of the time unless the business, the leadership team says, hey, we don't really do a lot of collaboration. We just need to talk to one another. That's all we need to do. Give us that solution. This is what I would recommend, this or hosted VoIP. Now Slack, poor old Slack. They were first to the party and then Teams took over. But Slack has been around for a long time for those of you that don't know. We used it at Whizkids in the early days. And this was probably 2012, 2013. It offers video, it offers chat, and it really was the first tool out there that started to offer virtual collaboration rooms for teams to meet and collaborate on different projects and different initiatives together. It's a great tool. I highly recommend it. I think they found their niche, and unfortunately, when Microsoft Teams came into play, they really started to bump Slack out of their market segment, and there's a couple reasons why. First of all, Teams was free for most clients, and so that was a big, it was difficult to pay for something if you're getting it free. But so Slack saw that, and so they went out to market and were recently acquired by Salesforce. And I wondered how long it was going to take for that to happen, because quite frankly, Teams was killing them in the market as far as adoption and by end users. So my recommendation for Slack really would be for those customers that are heavily embedded in the Salesforce ecosystem. So if you're using Salesforce a ton, I'd still look at Teams, but Slack might be a good solution for your business. They were recently acquired, and I expect some heavy integrations between Slack and Salesforce moving forward. So if you're a company that is heavily invested in Salesforce, Slack may be a good tool for you to look at, but I definitely would compare it with Teams to see the pros and cons of each of those. But that would be really the play for Slack moving forward. It would be a Salesforce organization. As you guys know, I am a big proponent of Teams. I think that hands down, it is the superior product out there. Not only because we're a Microsoft partner, but it just is. And there's a lot of reasons why Teams makes a lot of sense for businesses. So UCaaS, Zoom, and Slack, all the features that come with those products are rolled up into Teams, plus a lot more, and I'll talk about that. So the first thing is that most businesses receive Teams if they have Microsoft 365 email services now. It's added on for free. So there's no cost, which is phenomenal. There was obviously a reason why Microsoft did that. They wanted to displace Slack. So all they had to do was bolt it on to their Teams package. It has video, chat, and calling. So you can video with team members, you can chat with them, instant message, as well as you can call them and have calls. Recently, they've added external calling onto Microsoft Teams. So now Microsoft Teams can become your phone system as well. So not only does it become your internal tool, but become your external tool to communicate with clients and staff members. And it's got some very robust features built within there. So for most businesses, it's going to be able to handle your call flow and what you're doing there. But where it really stands out, in my opinion, is it's a robust communication platform. And I mentioned it's best demoed, but let me give you an example of some areas that we use it and how it works. So we're doing a lot of projects at any one time, both for new clients and existing clients. And we use, Microsoft Project at Whizkids to deliver projects, pretty standard Gantt charts and timelines and assigned resources, et cetera, et cetera. But there was always a challenge of kind of, when you've got 30 projects going, keeping communication and collaboration really pinned to one area versus being emails and calls and chats, and you're trying to find all this information. So the way we use Teams in our project department, as an example, would be every time a new project comes in, we open up a new Microsoft team. And then we assign all the members they're going to be contributing to that project to that team, so that all their communication, all their Excel documents and Word documents, all their meeting notes, all stay pinned to that team. So as they need to go back in and look for information or find information, it's readily available there. So they meet within that team, all the documents and all the collaboration is done right within that Microsoft team. So that's one area or one department that uses Teams extensively. And what we saw was what ended up happening was the people came to meetings more prepared. That was the first thing that we saw, because they could go into that team, 20 minutes before, prep themselves on what was going to be covered and all the content. So we saw a lot of benefits of shifting to that. The other things that Teams allows you to do is there's a whole ecosystem of apps. So Microsoft is changing right now as an organization. For those of you that don't know, they're on a tear, and they've really changed and gone. They were always a development company, but they're heavily focused on development now. And all their support is gone. They've outsourced it. Microsoft isn't providing support anymore. All of their efforts are being put into developing applications, and they're doing so at a very rapid pace. And so as you get into the Teams ecosystem, what you find are there's all these applications Microsoft has created that you can bolt on to the team that you've created. So let me give you an example. In our leadership group, we have strategy meetings, and these strategy meetings take place yearly and they take place quarterly. And with any strategy meetings, you want to have some way to track, where you're headed, what you're doing, and how you're going to get there. And Microsoft has a great tool called Planner. Some of you might have heard of it before. But Planner is a separate application that you can embed into your Microsoft team. So what we do from a leadership perspective is when we get ready to have our leadership meeting, we open up a new team for that year's leadership meeting, and we add on the Planner app and embed it right within that team. So right there, we have all the information that we need to plan for our yearly strategy. Again, all these different apps, they have Power BI, which Power BI is more of an analytical app, but I mean, there's hundreds that you can embed into your team's ecosystem. So for that reason, the robust collaboration platform, the ability to tie in all of these other applications, and again, those don't free. Planner's free. Most of these applications are free. There's no cost for them. For that reason, I strongly recommend Teams in most cases for businesses, just simply because there's just much more there for them, and the cost is nominal. And the last area where it really excels is collaboration. So I always think of a tool as how good can I use it with my internal team, but I want to be able to use this with my clients and staff as well. I don't want a separate tool that I need to train my folks on how to use. So Teams does a really good job with external clients as well. And we even have some of our larger clients who have embedded Teams within their enterprise clients. So Teams has the ability to actually communicate with one another. So if you're working with large enterprise clients who have Teams and you want to have communication channels, Teams can be integrated that way as well, so that you can quickly talk with one another as maybe you're collaborating on a project. And we find it very powerful that way too, to be able to bring companies together through Teams. So it's by far the leader in this space. And I think that if you aren't using it, you should talk with a partner, have them demo it, explain a little bit about your business and what your business is doing, and have them show you how Teams can work for you. The last point I would make on any of these tools, and I think this is something that I see happen quite often, no matter the technology, and I talk a lot about this or in tech talks moving forward, is change management around implementation of these tools. And I think where I see a lot of clients succeed is when they go to implement these tools, they work with a partner for the implementation. Number one, I think that's important because they're going to help you understand best practices and how to set it up. But the second thing that they do is they promote, champions within their organization who really understand this tool and help roll it out to their teams. And then the third thing that they do is they make it an event. So, they have a rollout, they have a launch party for this new tool. And I don't care what technology that you're implementing. If you're not doing those things, it's not going to go well. I can tell you that for being in this business for 20 years, I know it's not. And the companies that spend the time rolling it out and invest a little bit of time see a much higher adoption, and they get a lot more traction with that piece of software than those that don't. So my final recommendation is, if you choose to make a change and you choose to adopt one of these tools, spend a little bit of time training and educating your team on it, build some excitement around it, and you'll see a much higher adoption rate. One of the things that we've also seen with Teams clients is once they adopt Teams, they'll set up a channel that's questions on how to use Microsoft Teams, and everybody kind of jumps in there and provides tips and tricks, especially those product champions. So with that, what I'd like to do is open up any questions. Bo, is there any questions as we were moving through?
Yeah, nothing in the chat box. I think I was remiss in maybe mentioning that if you have a question, you could drop it in the chat box. But of course, most of us know how to do something online, and at this minute we don't have any chats. But I do want to invite everybody, if you want to unmute yourself. This is a Zoom meeting, so feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question directly to Michael. And as you all think about your questions, I've got one question that I'd like to have you address, if you can, Michael. It's just in terms of, you were talking about redundancies in business. A lot of times entrepreneurs, buy a solution and then they shift around and they buy another solution, and before you know it, you have this solution stack, if you will. and there's often a lot of redundancies in there. WizKid, that's something WizKids can actually, I guess, tell us how you guys can come in and look at a business and analyze whether it's security or whether it's a solution stack or things of that nature, and how they can, how folks can benefit from that.
Yeah, it's a good question, Bo. I think my recommendation would be, if you are looking at changing your technology stack and moving to the cloud and adopting some different tools, one of the most important things that you can do is have that provider do an assessment, and they should offer some sort of free assessment, where they come in and take a look at your existing architecture and determine, what it's going to take to move and actually move some of those services to the cloud. A lot of times, speaking to redundancies, they are going to find overlaps with things that you're doing, areas that where maybe you're using communication and collaboration tools as an example, where you're investing in multiple tools, or maybe where your backups and your disaster recovery aren't being done properly, and we see that often, where there's not they're not using the right software, and the time that they need to recover, the software they're using doesn't allow them to recover that quickly. So there's a lot of good information. I think a lot of businesses out there, they have to make decisions on this, but a lot of times, they don't necessarily. It's a difficult decision to be able to make, because most folks, when they start business, they're not going to tech school. They didn't get a BA in computer science. And so, they have, through these assessments, I think it really allows you as a business owner to really sit back and evaluate the different providers. And you're going to find the one that's the best, because they're going to come back with some strong recommendations, and you'll clearly see through the assessment process who's leading, who's pretending to do cloud and who's actually doing cloud. And I think that's an important part of the process and the assessment, because that will become real clear to you as you evaluate those providers.
So Michael, and I appreciate the giving back, the agnostic approach to this, is that you've taken time to put this presentation together, and you've talked about different solutions that are available. Some are free, like Slack, and I'm a Slack user as well with one of the companies that I work with. That's how they do a lot of their stuff, and they also use Microsoft Teams internally. So there are instances where you may find that it's smart to do that. But would you happen to be able to recommend a great technology company, an IT services company that could do an evaluation? I don't know, maybe somebody like WizKids.
Well, I own one. So that's a good start. Yeah, I think that our assessments are, we take a lot of time in how we do those. And there's a lot of information that we provide back to the prospective client, after that assessment's done. And I think that if anything, there's going to be some good information that comes out of it for you, and might help you plan for that strategy moving forward. And that's what we're seeing a lot of right now, is businesses are, some are looking at, okay, we know we want to downsize our commercial space. Great. We know we're going to move to more of a remote, flexible work environment. Great. We know that there's going to be some savings, but how in the heck do we get our tech out of our corporate office? Where do we put it, and how do we make that happen? And I think that that's a lot of the assessments we're doing today, is providing input on how businesses can do that. And so, yeah, we would love to do that for your organization if the need's there.
And how long would an implementation take, or I guess an analysis, if I call your business and say, hey, you know what, I know a lot about my business, and I'm an expert at, for me, it's marketing, but I really don't know much about, I know computers and I know software, but I don't know much about hardware. I don't know much about cloud and infrastructure. If you were going to do an assessment for me, and I understand that you offer free assessments, it's a conversation, right? Let's talk about your business, and where are you today, and your benchmark. How long does that analysis take? And then maybe, what's the implementation process look like, if you can share that with us?
So it depends on the size of the business, and the architecture we're going through. So if it's, I'll use this based on normally the assessments take about 2 to 4 hours. And that's the general time frame that you could spend there. And then about another, 60 to, I'd plan 90 minutes where the solutions engineer as well as the account manager are meeting with the client, going through the solution and what we found and the direction that we think that they should go. From a cloud migration, the time framing there, and that's actually a really good point, because I always think as we're purchasing things, we're always looking for those kind of what are some good questions I can ask this provider, right? What are some things that I can help me determine where they're at? Where's their operation maturity level at as far as a cloud provider is concerned? I think asking a provider to walk you through their migration timeline and template is a really good way to understand where they're at. And a cloud provider who's done multiple migrations and who has migrated businesses like yours and understand them is going to have a pretty in-depth template for how they do that. And I think that is one way that you can tell the operational maturity level of that provider and help you make a decision on who may be the best for your business.
Okay.
Michael, I've got a question about these collaboration tools and integrating telephony onto your handset, onto your cell phone. How well does that work? And do you have clients doing that a lot?
Yeah, so the question is, how do these applications work on a mobile device? And I would say that now in 2021, they all work well, from unified communications up to Teams. The mobile applications are strong. I would say that in the early days of hosted Voip and UCaaS, we saw the mobile applications drawing a lot of battery power and phones dying quickly, which slowed that adoption. But cell phones have gotten better battery wise, resource wise, and so a lot of those mobile applications don't draw the same power and resources as they did before. So to answer your question, they're all solid, they all work well, and that's what we use at Whizkids and have been for a long time, is mobile applications to do our business, our phone business. Does that answer your question, Andre?
Yeah, I think so. I think that I know that I work with people that are really, that's their concern, is if they're going to go with these unified services, they want it to work on their handset really well, just like they're making a call with their cell provider.
And they do. I think that, and part of that change has been that when we were testing that service in 2011, 2012, at that time, the cell towers didn't do a good job handing off traffic to mobile devices. And you would see a drop as you transition from tower to tower. So if you were talking on your mobile phone on a hosted VoIP application, you could see that drop and there'd be a pause there. The cellular networks in most major cities have been built up since that time in the last 8 to 10 years, and so you don't see that same drop as you're moving from, as you're driving in your car going from one tower to the next. You don't see that same drop anymore. So I would say, I would comfortably say that if you had someone that was concerned that the mobile application would provide a degraded performance, I would say no. I would disagree with that. I think you're going to find that most all of them do a really good job. Any other questions, Bo, or any other thoughts anybody has today? I'm excited for the next tech talk. The desktop as a service is an exciting product for us. That's been in production for over 2 years. We had that going ahead of COVID. So I was kind of a visionary in that way. I saw the need to move desktops to the cloud because they're just a pain to manage. So why not put them in a cloud environment where they're centralized and managed? And then COVID hit. So I encourage you all, that's going to be a really exciting demo. Not only are we going to show our product live, how it works, we're going to show a performance, which I think is important with cloud desktops. And then we're also going to show what we're doing in the thin client space. and how we're designing computers and laptops that are extremely small, so that essentially, as we talk about these new flexible work locations, you're going to come into a couple monitors sitting on a desk with a very small device attached to the back of that monitor that is communicating with your cloud desktop. So I can come in and sign in, and I'm ready to go. And so we're going to demo some of those on the next call, and there's some really interesting tech going on there. So if you like that sort of thing, I suggest you attend. There's some really good content on that one. That's going to be a little bit more technical. I'm going to have my cloud architect Vara will be on that call with me, who will be going through some other technical specs of our DaaS service.
Michael, and as I understand, the tech talks are going to happen once a month. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
And the idea will be, you know, it's as interactive as you want it to be. We do record these, and we will be sending the recorded link to everyone after the call as well. So you can feel free to share that with somebody, or share it with your teams if you'd like. And I think, you know, we get a little bit better as we go along. We get our practice. Michael, I think there's a slide on here how everyone can contact you, and also your national sales director, Bob Retwish. Obviously, you guys are located on social, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram as well, and can be followed there with some of the posts that we do weekly with statistics or information, links to your blogs, basically just, you know, education and maybe a little bit of entertainment from time to time. I definitely want to see if there are any other questions that we have, you know, before we all sign off and get on with our day jobs. Want to thank everybody for attending for sure. And Michael, thank you for putting the series together. I look forward to, you know, a lot of the topics that we've talked about that you're going to be reviewing as the year goes on. As an entrepreneur myself, I think that you only get better at playing chess by playing with better players. And I think by being on a call with each other here and inviting other people to network together on these types of things, I mean, you know, you put a lot of statistics up earlier, and whenever I see statistics, I remember the statistic that 86% of all statistics are made up. So, you know, and maybe that statistic's even made up. What we really want to look at are hard trends. In my business, you know, we always say, you know, the device, whether you're an Apple fan or a Samsung, Android, whatever it is the use of the mobile device a hard trend? Is it on the upswing, or is it on the downswing? It's definitely on the upswing. And when you look at business, when you look at enterprise, whether you're small, medium, or large, even more specific when you're large and medium, technology is dominating, and the cloud and security to keep all this information, you know, wrapped up in a nice tight package where no one else can get to it, but at the same time where your people can get to it. How they can collaborate together in, like you said, coming together in workspaces for a week. And, you know, how many days is that? I listen to a lot of reports, and when Facebook says that half of their employees won't be coming back to the office, that is a major undertaking to make sure all of those people get connected, they stay connected, and they're able to collaborate efficiently as a business. So looking forward to a lot of extra tech talks. Again, thanks for everybody for being on here. Michael, any parting words or?
No, I think, Bo, you hit the nail on the head, and that's why I started these. You know, I sit across from other business owners, CEOs, CFOs, COOs, and you know, it's clear at times they're struggling to figure out the route to go and the direction to go, and you know, what's best for my business. And so that's why I put on these talks, was an opportunity to say, hey, here's what other folks are doing. Here's what we're seeing in the marketplace. Here's some of the tools that you should consider if you're going to change your work environment, and adopt this more flexible arrangement. And that was the whole idea behind these. So, you know, my goal is for people to get just a couple small tidbits out of these that help them. And if they do, great. And that's what I hope happens. So thanks everybody for joining. And next month we'll have another one of these, and I hope that you all can attend. Thanks again for the time today. I really appreciate it.